afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining and welcome at today's webinar. This is the second webinar of our series, which we organize to stay in touch even in these times when physical meetings are still not possible. My name is Emese van Maanen, and in the next hour, we will be talking about how future trends can help us to reduce environmental impact. We will focus on technological and analytical developments and how these can contribute to more environmentally friendly practices. We will start with Michel and Matheus from BASF, Fundação Espaço Eco, FEE, presenting a project they have with clients to help them reduce their environmental footprint. We will then continue with Marion, who will show us how to reduce our carbon footprint when it comes to transport, and close the session with Konstantin, who will present about testing and show the latest developments in the analytical field. Before we jump into the great presentations, I would like to inform you about the logistics of the webinar. You have been all put on mute so that we can avoid any background noises disturbing the presentations. The webinar will be recorded and the link together with the presentation will be shared. Do not hesitate to share your questions and ideas. You can do that during the webinar by using the chat function, and we will answer your questions at the end of the webinar when we will have also time slot for Q&A. However, I would also like to mention that if we will not have time because of the presentations for the questions, we will answer every single question after per email or contacting you on the phone. But first, let me introduce myself and ProTerra Foundation very briefly. I am Emese van Maanen, the director of the ProTerra Foundation. The ProTerra Foundation is located in the Netherlands. It was founded in 2012. Its mission is to be a global network of businesses supporting more sustainable agriculture practices in the food and feed supply chains, where relevant, the conversion to non-GMOs and full respect of workers' and communities' dignity. We envisage a world where all businesses contribute to the protection of biodiversity by switching to sustainable production, conserving natural resources, and ensuring that local communities are treated with dignity and respect. The ProTerra Foundation is an organization that promotes sustainability at all levels of the feed and food supply chains and production systems. We own and continuously develop the ProTerra Standard, which is a global multi-crop sustainability non-GMO standard that covers all crucial areas of the responsible supply chains. Well, let me present you some figures very quickly before we start the great presentations. This slide shows the countries we are active in. The main countries of destination of the products are in Europe, such as Norway, Germany, Switzerland, or France. Many people know us for soy certifications. We certify around 3.5 million tons every year. 2020, we will have a slight increase again in volumes, despite the difficult supply situation in non-GM. Here you can see also the last two figures. We are finalizing 2020 volumes. A significantly growing area, however, is sugarcane, especially in South America. This slide shows you the countries where the ProTerra Standard is used either for certification or for verification. With this, I would like to give the word to Michel and Matheus. The word is yours. Thank you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here with you. And I'll share some projects that we at Fundação Espaço Eco developed regarding how these future trends help us to reduce environmental impact. So can you go to the next slide, please? So the agenda that we bring today is a quick introduction talking about Fundação Espaço Eco. And then we will talk about some company information about the project that we will explain Cargill, and then we will go in the examples that we developed regarding life cycle management in this company, and talking about how do we address these topics and how we understand and manage these topics in Fundação Espaço Eco. So Fundação Espaço Eco, or Espaço Eco Foundation, is a private non-profit organization, an NGO, set up and maintained by BASF since 2005 in Brazil. We are located in São Bernardo do Campo, which is a city in São Paulo state. So we are located in that beautiful area that you can see in the photo. And we are a nonprofit association that works and acts like a sustainability consulting. And our mission is to assist companies and government and other organizations in sustainability issues. So we develop projects regarding life cycle management as the main area behind all our approaches. And we take mensuration studies based on life cycle assessment, carbon footprints, and other indicators. And for BASF business units, to support the company business units, but we develop projects as well for other organizations and in partnerships sometimes with other actors in different value chains. So we work with research and development. And going to the topic of this discussion today, I would like to start talking about some mega trends that we know that PwC in a recent study showed that there are many trends that are related to the world in general, and they listed 5 the most important trends in the world that are demographic shifts, shift in economic power, the accelerating urbanization, climate change resources scarcity, and the technology advancement. And these global megatrends are related with many environmental and social and sustainability issues that are, we have this photo in the right side that are some hot topics, let's say circular economy, digitalization, carbon pricing, big data, green bonds, gamification. And we understand that these megatrends are related to new possibilities to include and to address the environmental effects of this future or these trends that we are facing and have to deal with this. So yeah, we will talk about a small picture, a small fraction of this big quantity of challenges that are one of the main topics worldwide that we are carbon footprint. So we understand that accounting for carbon footprint is very necessary and is a first step considering a big sustainability strategy. So we will talk about one project that we developed together with Cargill, one client. And first of all, I will only share some institutional information about the company. So next slide, please. So Cargill is in Brazil and as well. And one of the purpose of the company is nourish the world in a safe, responsible, and sustainable way. This is the main purpose of the company worldwide. And when we go deeper in some numbers about Brazilian context of this company, can you go to the next, please? There are some important numbers. So the company is in Brazil since 1965. There are more than 11,000 employees. They are in the 17 Brazilian states and the federal district. There are operations in 147 municipalities in Brazil. They have many warehouses and transshipments, 23 plants, 6 port terminals, and 2 innovation centers, just to have an overview of the presence of the company in Brazil. And then talking about the strategic sustainability priorities, the company that together with the vision and purpose, they have an ambition to be a sustainability leader, combining teams to create synergies and change food systems. So they left many important themes to address regarding farmer prosperity, human rights, climate change, land use, and water resources. And through technology, innovation, partnerships, monitoring systems, they want to address each of these topics in order to achieve this ambition of being sustainability leader. And Fundação Espaço Eco developed some studies regarding not only the carbon footprint analysis, but taking our methodology of eco-efficiency that Matheus will explain in the following. So we will present to you the results of our studies with Cargill and the attributes, the main deliverables that this study left to the society and to the company interests. So, Matheus.
Hello, everyone. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, nice. So I'm Matheus Fernandes here from Fundação. I'm a sustainability analyst here, as Michelle. So here we will present a Cargill case. We started our relationship with Cargill in 2015 when we did our first eco-efficiency study on the production of stomach extract. Specifically the elephant extract, a very famous brand of the company with a very good market share. So we decided to start with one product. This gave us an important diagnosis of the product, of the value chain. And from it, annually we carry out new analysis annually, focus on understand how improvement projects and how other kinds of practices of the company help the product's eco-efficiency, as well as some unpredictable events, as some year that had a lot of rain or some problem on the cultivation phase, how it could affect the performance, the eco-efficiency of the product. And the eco-efficiency is an indicator that we use here that analyzes 10 impact categories, among them the carbon footprint and the water footprint as well, which is in total there are 10 impact categories being analyzed. So the studies identify some hotspots of the product. Can you go forward, please? Just one. Yes, so we could analyze how it was the performance of the product annually. As you said, we could understand how some practice or some happening or something that happening on the cultivation phase as well in other life cycle, other stage of the life cycle of the product happened, how it affected the product life cycle. It happens until 2018 when the company expanded the eco-efficiency analysis for more 6 products. But we go deeper in one issue of the tomato extract. Can you go forward, please? So as you can see, the analysis show that in the cultivation phase and the packaging phase was one of the most important issue on the life cycle. So just go forward one, please. So it was being identified as a hotspot of the product. So Fundação Espaço Eco helped them to understand, to develop a study with a new packaging that they would like to develop. So the previous one was steel packaging, and they were to develop a plastic packaging to make it better, to improve this stage of the life cycle. Can you go forward, please? So go please more 2 clicks just to put everything. Yes, right. So as I said already, the steel packaging was identified as a hotspot of the product life cycle, and they were to design a new packaging, a plastic packaging, a reusable plastic packaging to replace the steel packaging, and they need to understand if it would improve or not the sustainability performance of the product. And our study support them to understand how it would improve and how they could communicate the new features of this packaging. Just go forward one click, please. And once more. Yes, good. So our analysis showed that they would improve the eco-efficiency performance of the packaging. So an overall of 6% of the improvement in the packaging, in the product life cycle, because of the change in the packaging, and improvement of 18 less emission of GHG gases because of the improvement, because of the change in the packaging in the life cycle of the product. So below you can see some communication made by the Cargill. It's available on the site that I put here in the slide, where they show they use our information in our analysis to communicate with their clients, with their customers, and they show us as a partner in this project. Can you go once more, please? As we know, the plastic is not living its best moment. You know, there is some issues about the plastics because someday it was the solution for everything, but today it has been facing some problems because of the plastic. So they needed to communicate better with their clients, with their customers, and show all the best features of this packaging. So a packaging that was designed to be reused, and so it has to be reused to have a good performance in terms of environmental performance. So they make sure to involve the communication areas and make some communication focused on some groups of clients, of customers, to make them aware of the problem, of the solution they have, and how to make it be a solution, not more problem related to plastic. So as you can reuse it more and more, this type of packaging that can be used for many things that they make sure and make clear here in their communication, you would improve the performance of the product as we show in our analysis. So here just show for you one of our case. Here you can access our activity report of 2019, and there you can see more other case of LCM, of life cycle management. We are helping some companies, not just, as you said, we are not just for work for BASF, but other companies as well as Cargill and other companies, and not just in the agro environment, but other companies as well from other sectors. And there you can find out more of our case on sustainable life cycle management. I think it's all. And here are our contacts, and feel free for make some questions for us.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Matheus. Yes, please put your questions in the chat, and we will, if we have time at the end, we will answer them, otherwise directly per email. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing and presenting some interesting trends with us, and this great example, which always makes it easier to understand and makes it tangible. And as we have seen, logistics has also a significant role and a very important role when it comes to LCA and carbon reduction projects. So with this, I would like to pass the word on to Marion, who will show us their solutions for transport. Word is yours. Thank you.
Good afternoon. This is Marion Kastelijns. I'm a manager business development at Futureproof Shipping. Futureproof Shipping is a company registered in Rotterdam in the Netherlands, registered in 2017. We are a business, though like a social enterprise, so our main target is to accelerate the energy transition in the shipping industry. Maybe next slide. Yeah, next one. Just to give an overall view, generally shipping is seen as, and is actually, if you measure per ton or per container, it is a relatively green form of transport if you compare it, for example, to air freight or road transport. However, the total shipping industry as a whole also has a huge amount of emissions. Not just CO2, but also NOx is an important emission in the shipping sector. IMO, the shipping sector was not part of the Paris Agreement, the maritime industry, because it's kind of like a no man's land. And this is also why the maritime sector was a little bit behind, let's say, on the developments in greening the industry. Maybe the next one. Yeah, so the numbers I put on the previous slides are from the total maritime sector. On this slide shows some transportation greenhouse gas emissions on the inland water transportation. If we look at the greening the maritime industry, it is very hard to move directly to vessels that are seagoing, so that cross the ocean. The typical first step would be to start with inland vessels, especially in Europe. This would be relatively easy to start with. Then move on to short sea vessels, and finally reach the vessels that are going on deep sea, where of course also the biggest chunk of emissions are. But on this sheet, I show you that also there's quite some significant emissions on inland shipping even. Maybe next. A lot of people think that the maritime industry is very hard to move in terms of an energy transition. However, we believe that in small steps this can be achieved. Already right now, inland shipping on batteries is possible. If you then have completely green electricity, you basically move towards zero emission shipping directly. However, vessels on battery are really just applicable for short voyage and container business probably. Next, we could move to compressed hydrogen. First also inland shipping, and then directly following could be short sea. We're already seeing in Norway that the short sea shipping market is moving. End of last year, a tender came out from Heidelberg Cement and Scachetti. I'm not very good at pronouncing. If there's some Norwegians here, they might want to kick me, but it's a Norwegian grain trading company that together with Heidelberg Cement put out a tender for the first ever truly zero emission vessel on the for the short sea, which would sail along the coast in Norway. And we are really waiting for other cargo owners, so also parties that are in the bulk shipping could follow suit. We believe that it would technically be possible within the next 1 or 2 years for a vessel to sail on compressed hydrogen also on the short sea. Then if you start looking at a little bit ahead, then we believe that liquid hydrogen would be a next application for inland shipping and short sea still. And if you start thinking about deep sea, you probably start thinking about ammonia or other hydrogen carriers, which I don't have the time to go into right now, but there's a lot of different options in development. Next slide. So who are we as Future-Proof Shipping? As I indicated, we offer, we want to accelerate the energy transition in the shipping industry, and we offer zero emissions marine transportation services to enable the key players in the value chain to make the energy transition possible in shipping. The issue that we see is that parties that are typically active in the maritime sector are working on traditional business models, and therefore it's very difficult to get them moving in the right direction. And also contracts are often not designed to actually allow for innovation to take place. Next slide. So how do we do this? We can do this in 2 different ways. First of all, we want to build our own fleet. So we would be a zero emissions vessel owner. We have started with the first inland ship, as you will see on some of the next slides, but we are now about to buy the next 2 inland vessels. And in a couple of years, we hope to be the owner or co-owner of some short sea vessels. And besides doing that as a vessel owner, we also can give advisory to other parties along the chain and also other vessel owners to move to zero emission shipping. Next. As I said, the cleaner shipping industry can be achieved in many different ways. Several parties are working on efficiency. So this is about planning, but also more efficient engines. So to reduce really the energy and so therefore the fuel to be used in the industry. There have been already a lot of efforts on emissions capture, also on deep sea shipping, as you might know. They're talking about scrubbers, so filters basically to put in the exhaust pipes of vessels. And there are several projects already on carbon-based alternative fuels as biofuels to mix them with the HFO, so the normal fuel that is being used in vessels, to clean it a little bit, let's say. However, Future-Proof Shipping works exclusively on projects that lead to zero-emission solutions. This can be combined with efficiency, but we don't look at capture or carbon-based alternative fuels. Next one. So what we do, as I said, we enable the entire chain. So we talk to cargo owners. That is a big chunk of my responsibility. All types of logistic service providers. Those are the DHLs and the Maersks, but also can be owners of large bulk vessels or agents that work in the bulk shipping market. Traders, we're talking also often. Then we speak to the ship owners, so actually the owners of the vessels, to try to get them to start moving, or sometimes also to discuss about buying some of their vessels to make them green or co-owning. Then we also need to interact with shipyards and technology providers. The typical vessel owner only knows the diesel, the supplier of the diesel engine or the fossil fuel engine and certain types of propellers, etc., etc. But now they would have to start talking to producers of fuel cells, hydrogen storage parties, and all kinds of electric components, integrators to integrate the full electrical system. So there's completely different parties in this market to be able to make this happen. Then we also coordinate with investors and also different types of investors, so not just banks that are typically involved in this sector. There's a big chunk of legislation in this effort, because right now it is many alternative fuels cannot be legally not be used yet in shipping. And then we also took to the green energy producers, so basically suppliers of hydrogen, ammonia, all kinds of formats. Next. So this is our target, to have by 2025 6 inland vessels, 2 short sea vessels, and then have projects going for 2 ocean-going vessels. Next. Next. Okay, so this is our first inland vessel that we are working on. We are the owner of this vessel since January 2020. This vessel is sailing specifically for one cargo owner, which is a cargo owner in the sports fashion industry, sailing from the Netherlands to Belgium. And yeah, it's a very typical inland vessel. As you also nicely see on this picture, it often sails the vessel itself, and it has a barge next to it to increase the capacity. And we have just completed the first legal hazard and safety assessment and answered all the questions. So we have almost finalized the legal path to move to a completely zero emission vessel. You can show the next slide. So this is a very simple sketch, but this is what it will look like in the future. It's the same vessel, but we will remove the diesel engine and also some of the tanks, and we will place an 825 kilowatt fuel cell. Of course, also electric motors, batteries, and in this way we will become completely zero emission. So there will not be any generator or any diesel on board anymore. Next one. Yeah, this is what I showed you. This is sailing from the Netherlands and Belgium. And the finally, we expect to reduce about 2,000 tons of CO2 equivalent annually by using the fuel cells and green hydrogen. The hydrogen that we use will be green and will be about 120,000 kilos a year. It will be stored in a container and it compressed, and the container will be swapped at a terminal. So there will not be fixed tanks on board of the vessel, which will make it more flexible to operate. Next one. This is the expected timeline. We're still aiming to sail at the end of this year, which is a very aggressive timeline because all the parts still need to be, well, some have been pre-ordered, but many of the parts still need to be ordered. And it's still about 3 months time to do the actual retrofit in the yard. Next. Yeah, these are our partners. BCTN is the terminal owner and the agent that we are working with. The Holland Shipyards is the yard that will do the retrofit, so that will do the changeover. And then there are several other parties involved. Next one. Yeah, then I wanted to just give a high-level overview of other projects that we are working on. One is an import vessel in the Netherlands, in the port of Rotterdam. There we aim to apply battery solutions, so not hydrogen. Next, we're also looking at a dry bulk vessel, actually, which transports grain and soya from Rotterdam to Duisburg, or a terminal just beyond Duisburg in Germany, and back aluminium supply. But the cargo owners still need to give a commitment, let's say, to actually pay for the premium. So basically for the CO2 reductions. Next, we are looking at a push boat. So that's a small vessel that pushes actually the barge, so the the part that actually holds the cargo. This was in the south, from the south of the Netherlands to Belgium. Next slide. But then we're also working on some short sea opportunities. We are, as the first one here is the one for Heidelberg Cement and Veesepet, where we submitted a proposal. But there were about 15 parties that submitted a proposal. So it's very clear that a lot is happening in this market. We also looked at a bulk vessel, actually for Cargill, interesting. However, this was already 1.5 years ago, and it was not financially viable yet. But we will review the assessments we did back then, because there's been a lot of technological advancement in the meantime. And then we have also looked at a short sea vessel on the Baltics, a new build. Next one. Yeah, these are a few other options. So another short pusher that was also, I believe, also for a large agro company. Another vessel on the inland, and then, so there are many, and a sand extraction vessel. So there's many different opportunities to apply zero emission shipping and operations. However, we see that we really need cargo owners to be willing to push this forward. So if there are any cargo owners in this webinar today, I would really like to urge them to start thinking about supporting some companies, it doesn't need to be us, but the shipping industry also to really start looking at greener solutions, because there's a lot to gain in the shipping industry. Next one, I think that's it. Yeah, I still have our team here. So our founder here is Huip van Grijfpaarden. He's a son of a shipping family, from a shipping family. He started this business. And then there are some slides with my other colleagues, but I think I will leave it to that looking at the time. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much. Very interesting what is possible today, you know, and even if you mentioned that it's sometimes difficult to move forward and a lot is needed, it's great to see how many different projects you have. And in my personal curiosity, what sectors are actually the leaders? Do you see also a bit of interest in the agriculture sector, or are there other sectors that are really leaders in this innovation?
Yeah, initially we really expected the consumer business to be leading. Also, maybe partly because our first client is actually from the consumer sector. But we have so more let's say the clothing, the sports clothing, the televisions, the online retail, etc. But we have actually had very interesting interactions with parties that are both in the agri sector and also in the sand, cement, etc., etc. But we believe that for bulk sector, so for the agro sector, it's actually easier to realize a project, because often the vessel is just the cargo of one cargo owner on the vessel. You just have one cargo owner on board. On the other hand, the margins are often much lower. So it's also harder for them to contribute financially to the zero emission step. So that is then the challenge that we see.
Great. Thanks so much. Thank you, Maria.
Thank you.
As we mentioned at the beginning, the presentation with including the contact details will be shared after the webinar. And let's move on and see some development in the analytical field from Konstantin. The word is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Emese. Yeah, good morning, audience. My name is Konstantin Ritsos. I'm the technical director at Food Chain ID Testing GmbH, a laboratory based in Augsburg, Germany. And we are part of the Food Chain ID group, which is also closely related to ProTerra in terms of testing agricultural goods for GMOs. but for certification as well. And today I want to give you an overview on new developments and minimal requirements in the field of GMO analytics. Next slide, please. First of all, I want to talk about the current situation regarding GM soy varieties that are currently cultivated, and afterwards come to the minimal testing requirements and options laboratories and customers have. Okay, let's start with the GMO soy varieties. The reason I'm focusing on this crop plant is that the majority of developments in terms of testing and also developing on the new varieties have happened in the soy sector so far. And it's a good example how laboratories can adopt to these new developments. So next slide, please. So this is an overview of all the current commercialized soy events which are cultivated mainly in the US and Brazil so far. It's an overview of the cultivation status and approval status, focusing on the EU. And on the right part of the table, I have listed the genetic markers that are present in these events and are commonly used in general testing, screening approaches for GMO detection. And each of the event listed is also detectable by validated event-specific tests so far. So it's just an overview that I want to give you, focusing mainly on the variety of markers present, and as you might fetch from the table, there are also some varieties listed there that do not have the classic GMO markers so far, and they need event-specific tests for detection. Next slide. So, but it's a dynamic field, and further GMO varieties will enter the market in the next several years. For most of them, no event-specific methods and reference material is available so far. So we need to rely on that information been given by the developers in the context of their EU approval process. And on the last GMO on that slide, in the last row, which is marked yellow, I will come later on, because this represents a variety which is part of the so-called new GMOs or genome edited GMOs that will keep the supply chain busy for the years to come. Next slide. Yeah, so this table is actually a distillate of the two tables before. Laboratories and soy producers, traders, etc., they have to make sure that in their testing approaches, at least for the events listed there, they have to be covered by the laboratory analysis. I have mentioned applicable screening markers and event-specific tests, and as you can get the idea that there won't be a single approach that works for every company or for every laboratory, but there's really various combinations are possible to detect these GMO events listed there. Next slide, please. Yeah, so various combinations are possible, and one way the laboratories responded to that development is by developing so-called multiplex PCRs. simplified, one can state that in one PCR reaction, it will be possible to detect multiple targets. And the real latest development in that field is that you can also combine primer probes for rare events in one reaction by using a single dye for several different probes. Next slide. So in the end, it is possible to detect up to 10 different soy varieties in one PCR reaction. And as an example for that is a decaplex screening assay, which has been developed by us and is also now routinely employed, that can detect 10 different GMO soy varieties. So by this way, we can meet the challenge of the ever-increasing GMO tests one needs to include in the testing regimes without adding too much costs for the customer and also for the laboratory too. Next slide. Yeah, so once in a screening approach, GMOs are detected, you have to quantify their presence and evaluate whether the total sum of all the GMOs present comply to the legal thresholds, for example, that are applied in the EU or by private non-GMO standards like the ProTerra Standard. So that's really important to remember, that it's the quantification of different events that is required. In the GMO testing field, one can still observe that companies and laboratories rely on, for final GMO assessment, rely on the quantification of general markers, which is actually fundamentally wrong. So whenever you see testing reports stating quantities of markers like the 35S promoter or others, it has to be really taken care that you only take them for granted if the results are negative or at least below 0.01. Everything above is really dubious and actually fundamentally wrong. And why is that? I want to explain in the next slides. So the first reason is the copy number variation of markers. So every GMO which contains the markers might contain them in different copy numbers per haploid genome. So if you take, for instance, the two common GMO events, A2704 and the Roundup Ready Soy MON 4032. You can see that the A2704 in that schematic sketch contains two 35S elements, whereas in the Roundup Ready, it's only one element. And depending on which GMO you apply as a standard for GMO quantification, you end up with a quantification bias that might result in half of the or the double of the true GMO value. So it's biased over and underestimation by the factor 2, depending on the standard you choose. In the table below, it's just a small example of for many different GMOs and markers. So we have the 35S copy numbers, and you can see, just I mentioned before, the difference in the two soybean variety or three soybean varieties, because the A4457 has only one copy. And we have, for example, two further GM corn varieties that differ in that in the copy numbers as well. So it's really not right to use those markers for quantification. Next slide. The next reason is that it's quite common in bulk commodities that to some level botanical impurities are present, and these impurities can contain GMOs too. So from other crops, for example, from corn or canola. So it's not uncommon that you have, for example, rapeseed cake shipments which contain GM soy as botanical impurity. And whenever this is the case, the results for the markers which are present in the GMO botanical impurities too will be added up, and that's from the analytical point of view really wrong. Oh no, the slide before something important. The 35S marker, which is very often used for quantification. It's an element that has been derived from the so-called cauliflower mosaic virus, and this virus is also can be observed in soybean lots as well. It's commonly assessed that only crops from the brassica family, like canola, are infected, but due to the transportation of different goods, it can be that traces of the virus are still present in containers. And when you unload soybeans in those containers, they get contaminated too, and they will show a positive 35S signal in the PCR test. So it's just showed a real-world example. We had soy lecithins, which had 1.3% 35S value, so that would assume a labeling as GM according to the European law, but in fact, absolutely no GM soy was present there. It was only due to the virus presence. So be careful. Next slide, please. Okay. The genome edited crops that are considered as GMOs according to the current European law, they can contain, in contrast to the classic GMOs, not those large transgenic inserts that confer herbicide or pesticide or insect resistance, but more subtle changes like small deletions, insertions, or point mutations that have been achieved in a more or less targeted way. Currently, there's one genome edited crop cultivated in the US from the company Calixed. It has an altered fatty acid spectrum as feature, and it doesn't contain any of those GMO markers, nor is a specific test available, and also no reference material. Next slide. So that will be the challenge for the future GMO testing field, that in absence of these classic markers and of reference materials and published methods, as no single genome edited crop has been submitted for EU approval so far, this will be quite tough. And one thing I would really like to stress is that by this, the genomic edited crop developers ignore EU law, because although if they aren't approved or in the EU, then there's a zero tolerance. And by this, the commodity trade is really put at risk, because any traces of an unapproved genome edited crop or GMO is illegal, and therefore this material can't be sold in Europe. Next slide. And so far it has been demonstrated that it is possible to develop tests for genome edited crops, or at least to detect specific point mutation in bulk commodities. For example, the Austrian Environmental Agency offers a test for so-called SU canola variety, which has been published last year, and it's also available at our laboratory. And we have developed a test for clearfield canola, which could become receive GM status in France this year, just to allow the involved stakeholders to remove this canola variety from their supply chain. And to mention the next generation DNA sequencing, we have also established here, they will allow the development of future testing methods for additional verifications too. Next slide. Yeah, so as an outlook, it would be really good to get access to more reference material and DNA sequences. So it would be necessary that may it be EU authorities alone or in conjunction with the developers could provide access to that material, because so far the developers showed not to be very cooperative, and this could and will provoke massive recalls in the future if a test for an unapproved commercialized GE crop will be developed and published. And as a status right now, there's huge efforts going on to from the governmental and private laboratories to develop tests for the calyxed soybean variety in the US, and it would be good if all parties work together to avoid any disruptions in the commodity trade. Okay, that's it so far. And last slide, yeah, just my details, and yeah, thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much. Your presentation also shows the complexity of the issue, which is also reflected in the legislational challenges traders and buyers face every day. So very interesting summary. Thank you so much, Konstantin. And we have, I think, a couple of minutes for some quick questions that came in. I think the first one is for Michel and Matheus, and is as follows. Was the environmental impact and carbon footprint of reuse or recycling or upcycling of the plastic packaging taken into account in case customers don't reuse the packaging themselves?
Oh, thank you for the question. Yes, in fact, it was considered a base scenario where 20% of the packaging would be directly used by customers. Assuming that this number wouldn't be so great at the beginning, there would be need some effort to make it greater. So we consider just 20% of the packaging being reused directly, and the remaining 8%, we consider 21% would go to the recycling system of Brazil. 21% is the current recycling rate here in Brazil, and the remaining 79% going to landfill. So the modeling consider all these questions, all these issues. We also make some sensitivity analysis to understand if this rate would go greater or if it was lower. Like if nobody reuse the packaging, how would affect the sustainability of the packaging? But you use the base scenario of 20% to communicate the results.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We have a question here for Marion. What are the estimated extra costs of zero emission shipping per ton per kilometer for high sea shipment, and what products or markets are willing to assume these extra costs if the transport would be certified?
Yeah, very good question. For high sea shipping, this has actually not been done and not been calculated yet. Actually, for high sea shipping, it's technically not possible yet to sail completely zero emission. That is, and this is exactly the reason why it is important to start with other sectors to basically start testing and developing the technology for high sea shipping. So yeah, I'm sorry, I cannot give an answer to that. I do believe that on the short term, well, let's say as soon as the technology is available, one can assume that the premium will be humongous, right? Will be very large. We see that currently in inland shipping, without a subsidy, the cost, so purely on commercial terms, you would pay about 200% extra on a normal shipping cost. But we have to take into account that the fuel that is being used, which is on inland shipping, a cleaner fuel than on deep sea or high sea, but still the fuel cost is extremely low currently. And if you have to compare that to a zero emission fuel or electricity, one of the two, then you would, even just that is already an additional cost, which is often doubling the operational cost of sailing such a vessel, right? That's already doubling the cost, just the fuel. Now, and then there's the piece of the investments in the new technology. So on inland, it's about 200% extra currently. However, if you look at the short sea proposals that have been submitted, it's also about double on the charter price of the vessel. So then not taking into account the fuel cost yet. So what we really need to clean up this sector, this industry, is all pieces coming together, right? So the technology becoming less expensive, the fuels, the clean fuels reducing in price. We need significant subsidies or whatever kind of grants to be able to do the investment into the vessels. And basically, we need a true pricing and a carbon tax or whatever could be applicable. And we will need cargo owners to be able to make commitments. And it's not only a commitment in terms of additional costs to be paid, it's also commitments in terms of longer term contracts, because you cannot do an investment which is maybe triple the cost of investment of the cost of a conventional vessel without a longer term contract. And this is also the beauty of what you see now happening in Norway, is that the cargo owners, I mentioned one earlier, and there's also now already a new tender coming out. They basically do this on 20-year contracts. I hope that helps a little bit, this answer.
Thank you so
much. I can't say to see deep sea shipping because it's not done yet. So.
Yeah. No, well, thank you so much. That helps, I think, to answer the question. Thank you. And the very last question, quickly, because we ran out of time, is for Konstantin. Are you considering quantitative NGS for authentication and purity check as for other application in the life science field?
Yeah, we are considering that, but of course we would prefer to try out real-time PCR-based tests as they are already established, cheaper and less expensive for the customer too. But as a last resort, quantitative NGS could be applicable.
Lovely. Thank you so much, everyone, for your interest. We will share the recording and the slides with you, and keep in touch, and hope to see you back in May when we have our next webinar. Thank you. Have a lovely day and take care. Goodbye.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye-bye. Thank you.